Of course Christmas is all about presents. In fact, the wise men invented Christmas gift giving. Even if you're not a Christian, this is still a fun plant story for you. I'll give you an entertaining take on the nativity legend that will have you rethinking those wise men and their humble herbs that they brought. Once we get this plant power story straight, we'll pivot from baby Jesus to the health benefits for your skin from these infamous herbs. Because you know I love when plants and history collide. Alright, let's recap real quick. So the legend of Jesus. You know, that one guy who ended up starting an entire global religion, which is an amazing feat. But he didn't do it alone though. His story was propelled after his death because of his buddies, Luke and Matthew. They took the time to write it all down. You know, they kind of got his ancient Wikipedia page going for him, and it was these writings that went viral. So really, when you think about it, as you sit here now with all the traumas and pressures of Christmas shopping looming over your shoulder this season, all of it can be boiled down to an ancient accountant and physician who quit their jobs and became Jesus's groupies. But back then they called them disciples. It's kind of funny when you think about it. Disciples and groupies, followers, you know, it's the same thing. It would be funny to think about disciples of Kim Kardashian. It's kind of the same thing. A bunch of people wanting to know everything about this man, Jesus. Anyways, let's do a quick cliff notes of the journal so that we can get to the good stuff. The presents! First of all, you can't have a superhero without an incredible origin story. And this particular story interests me because plant-powered presents, which I will set out to prove to you are better than gold. Giving gold, I mean gold. So basic. So Luke, the doctor, he writes, "Dear diary, you got this young girl Mary and her fiancé Joseph. They were going to get married, but then, plot twist, Mary gets pregnant. By God!" OMG. Luke, more details on this part, please? I wanted much more in-depth exposition on the Immaculate Conception detail. But no, he just throws it into his journal like he was blandly talking about having toast for breakfast. He would never get that book published by today's standards. Anyway, Luke, he continues. So she's preggo, and God tells Joseph it's all good, you don't need to break up with her, a hater's gonna hate anyways. Now they're officially a couple with a baby on the way. A baby from God, which apparently has been prophesized about for a long time. Therefore, other smarty pants people, you know, the ones that could read back then, they were living in the surrounding area and they were on the lookout for this God baby. They're constantly checking the signs and reading the sands and just looking for anything from God to let them know. It gets a little tricky here in the book because this is the part that has multiple authors. More of Jesus' old pals wrote stuff down too, with different versions of events and over different points in history. Many years later, when the final book was compiled, it would be like a mashup of The View and People magazine. Archives of Jesus. Part gossip, part salacious stories that may or may not be true, and plenty of judgment. Anyways, back to the origin story. For reasons which are not historically feasible, yet nonetheless integral to this part of the legend, Mary and Joseph happened to be on the road at the time Jesus is delivered. I think Matthew hit it out of the park here with the backdrop in this part of the legend. Of course, this little detail adds a lot of drama and allure to the story. If you haven't read this book yet, spoiler, the kid was born in a barn. I know, the audacity. The Son of God, born in a barn. Many would say that it was God's plan because he would be a humble son of God. Okay, that's not even the point to this whole story. Now we're getting to the good part. Today's version of Christmas success is presents. And good presents. The more expensive, the better. Or wait, maybe it is supposed to be the more thoughtful, the better. Okay, I don't know. Of all of Jesus's friends, Matthew wrote the most details about the origin story. So we're gonna go with his version. He's the one that said Jesus had some very special visitors after his birth. He too was light on the details on how he was privy to that birth information because Matthew was not on the road with Mary and Joseph when Jesus was born. He didn't even meet Jesus for another 30 years. Maybe he interviewed Mary and Joseph later. For my version, these visitors are besides the point. It's their presence that matter. It's just even the idea of the presents. For all I care, Matthew could have just made up the whole thing about visitors, as long as he mentioned Jesus getting some presents. Matthew tries to name drop about these visitors by mentioning their title, Magi. But that's as far as he goes for character development. Again, light on the details about these gift givers. I mean, I really had it up to here with Matthew and his vague recollection of events. He was a terrible investigative journalist. So, Matthew, did you consider, how did the Magi learn about the special star? How long have they been traveling? Dear Lord, what if they've been followed by nefarious actors? So many unanswered questions, Matthew. The only backstory we get about these visitors, like I said, is earlier their social title, the Magi. And depending on the translation or historical point of view, these gift givers were between 3 and 12 in number. They could have been kings, scholars, astronomers, priests, or perhaps on their way to becoming heretics in their time if they believed in this god-human. Anyway, it was probably a combination of all of those options. And again, light on the details, Matthew. He says they came from the east. And this is the plant power important information we needed. Because if we take Luke and Matthew's word for it, anyone traveling from the east would have come from the Arabian Peninsula or the surrounding areas. Tuck that little nugget of geographic information in your head. So this group of bros brings Jesus 3 presents. You've probably heard of them: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Sounds kind of underwhelming for those dudes who brought the plants, when their other buddy brought freaking gold. I know which one of these guys I would be writing my thank you card to that year. Thank you for the gold this year, Uncle Bob. Can you imagine going to a baby shower and 2 friends walk in with some houseplants and the third guy brings mom a bar of gold? That'd be so cool. When it comes to the gifts of the nativity, clearly gold is awesome because, well, it's gold. But it turns out that frankincense and myrrh would have been equally as impressive in those days. Yep, they might have even been more valuable than gold. First up, let's start with frankincense, because back in those days, it was very popular. All the rich people had it, and it was super hard to get. Hence, it was exclusive, because frankincense dealers had to go through a lot of trouble to get it. Step 1, the resin from the boswellia tree. Gently tap it, but not too much. Step 2, dry it out and turn it into product. Step 3, keep the tree's location a secret. Boswellia trees are small, gangly-looking trees, something that Dr. Seuss would have made up. And they only grew in the Arabian Peninsula and often in very rugged, arid locations. At least that's the only place they had survived by this point in history, because they were probably already suffering from ancient overharvesting. To make matters worse, these trees were very finicky. Drain them too much and they would die. At the time, they were not farmed. In fact, their harvester's location was shrouded in secrecy. Frankincense merchants would spin these crazy tales of demons and monsters who would protect the trees, but really they were just a ploy to scare away the would-be competitive harvesters. But if you go through all this trouble for frankincense, they were just gonna burn it for incense, right? Wrong! Frankincense was super useful back then, like ancient duct tape, but for rich people. Not only could they mix it with flour and mend leaky clay pots, the bark was great for clothing and makeup and medicine, and the list really just goes on. First of all, most herbalists would agree, Magi probably bought it for Mary for postpartum wound healing. Frankincense was often mixed into paste with water, honey, even beef fat, and then slathered onto a wound or the vaginal area after birth. There, it would be anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and use its ability to increase skin cell turnover rates to heal a wound quickly. Way to go for plant power. What a gift for Mary! Frankincense! Now, the next underrated plant power star is one that really needs a better historical introduction. Yet another missed opportunity for Matthew to add some reading entertainment for his audience. So, let me help him out. And now, the myth, the legend, the ultimate Christmas present, myrrh! Not burr, no. Myrrh with an M. This plant power cannot be contained. It can heal, it can pleasure, it can bring life after death. Wait, what was that last part? Hang on, I'll get back to that in a minute. Myrrh has fabulous plant healing properties, and that cat has been out of the bag of knowledge for a really long time. Myrrh has been documented in pharmaceutical recipes for pain relief as far as 2,500 years before Jesus. And guess what? It too was also often mixed into those pastes for wound healing. And while they didn't know how, but I bet one reason these ancient pharmacists prized myrrh so much was for its powerful pain relief. Science now knows that myrrh can activate the same opioid receptors that morphine and opium do. Yep, I bet Mary could have used some of that after squeezing out Jesus. Sure, most people know myrrh by her role in the hand of death, because she too was also a super popular ingredient in death ceremonies and embalming, which allowed families to enjoy the bodies of their loved ones much longer than if they were just left out to rot. When it comes to myrrh's role in the Bible, many people say that the gift was representative of Jesus' eventual death. But I find that hard to believe. I don't think these dudes traveled 4 months just to bring Jesus a symbolic gift. Yeah, I said traveled 4 months. Because just like frankincense, myrrh also comes from the same region of the world. It was difficult to produce, dry, and bring to market, making it a very valuable plant power product to have. While opium was being used in India for pain relief at the time of Jesus' birth, myrrh would have been the only thing this region had for real pharmaceutical pain relief. Also, remember, Matthew said these visitors were magi, the type of person who would have been of importance. They would have lived in established cities, and therefore they would not have been wandering the desert just waiting for this new star. No, they would have been in their cities from afar when they set out with their gifts. I mean, what timing? Why did Matthew mention these gifts at all? Was he just showing off for Jesus? I guess we can still do the same thing today. I don't understand why people post all their fancy stuff on Instagram, but that's pretty much what Matthew was doing. Perhaps he wanted to add an air of importance for his baby friend. All of these 3 gifts would have been way outside of the purchasing power for Joseph the carpenter. Plus, if you believe Matthew, Joseph had just traveled to Bethlehem to pay his taxes, so of course he couldn't go out Christmas shopping for his baby Jesus. Sure, some scholars only point to the ritual of these plants, and they're for marked occasions, such as birth, and they brought them for incense in a more ritualistic manner. But again, even if that's true, it's all about how you look at it. Maybe they planned several uses for it. Just like today, when us humans find a plant we really like, we often try to get it into our body by many routes: topical, oral ingestion, even inhaling it. Just look at the way we consume cannabis. So frankincense and myrrh no doubt would have been burned as well, hoping that its healing powers would somehow waft in through their nostrils and provide the health and vitality the way it does when it's applied topically. The ancient historical demand and use of frankincense and myrrh before and after the time of Jesus is quite extensively documented. No wonder Matthew wanted to write about them. Frankincense and myrrh were exclusive gifts, and they would have been expensive and sought after in the time Jesus was born. They were more rare than gold for the working class family to have. No wonder Matthew would have included them for the perfect first ever Christmas present. When it comes to modern gift giving, today it seems like gold is still a super popular rich person gift. Usually it's paired with some compressed elements such as carbon, diamonds. But what about frankincense and myrrh, the original Christmas presents? While they have fallen out of favor with the storied Hallmark Christmas classics, they've never fallen out of favor with the herbalists and alternative medicine. After all, these are 2 very powerful herbs, thanks to their genius plant chemistry. They have some very powerful molecules miraculously manufactured by these plants. These molecules are excellent for all sorts of healing treatments for the body and mind. But since this is my video and I am obsessed with natural skincare, that's what we're gonna focus on next. I love formulating with frankincense. It's still a pretty royal ingredient, at least that's what the price indicates, because it costs a pretty penny to purchase raw. Oh, but the benefits are so worth it. My favorite is to use the organic essential oil. I find the CO2 extract a little too strong because yes, just like any other drug or herb, dose matters. I would highly recommend against applying just 100% frankincense essential oil to your face or body. No, it really needs to be diluted in a lotion or another carrier oil. In the skincare world, its anti-inflammatory and cellular renewal properties, aka tissue remodeling properties, are well documented in modern science. In fact, it's so powerful at stimulating skin cells, there are several reports that detail that patients who apply topical frankincense oil to their faces break down Botox treatments faster, on average of 4 to 8 weeks faster, and thus needing reapplication of Botox sooner than those who don't use the herbal treatment, just because of frankincense. And for some reason, I just think it's so funny, because if you use Botox, this is not a put down. It's not meant to be negative or anything, but hear me out because it is a little ironic. People use Botox, which is a muscular toxin made by bacteria, to temporarily paralyze the underlying facial muscle, so the appearance of the skin on the surface looks young and unwrinkled. Right? That's what it is. But it turns out that frankincense cellular renewal and tissue remodeling properties are so powerful it undoes this paralyzation process from Botox sooner than our body naturally does it on its own. And instead of giving the appearance of younger skin, it actually helps grow the type of skin cells that create the smooth surface look that everyone wants in the first place, creating younger looking skin. How? Well, the proposed mechanism of action on how this works is because of frankincense's powerful terpene, alpha-pinene, which you may have heard me talk about before in some other videos. Alpha-pinene is very powerful, and one thing it does is prevents the breakdown of a molecule in our skin and on our surface muscle called acetylcholine. This acetylcholine molecule is essential for tissue contraction and cellular regeneration. Of course, we make less of it as we age. So, what does this have to do with Botox? Well, it turns out if your dermatologist accidentally does too much Botox or it traveled to the wrong place, there's an antidote they can give you which causes it to degrade much faster. This medication is called pyridostigmine, which works by blocking the enzyme acetylcholine esterase and therefore creating more acetylcholine in the muscle and the tissues. Sounds a lot like frankincense's mechanism of action. Both the antidote to Botox and frankincense's terpene result in higher levels of acetylcholine. So cool, right? I just love when plants do it better. I've attached a couple studies below if you want some leisure reading on this topic. Next up, myrrh. Trust me, she is more than an embalming fluid. And no, she will not make your skin look like a plastic corpse. When it comes to the effects on the skin, myrrh has some tricks up her sleeve. First of all, she reduces itching in the skin by direct chemical communication with our immune system, turning down the factors that signal itchiness to our brains and thus decreasing an itch response. Second, she reduces blemishes on the skin because she is a singlet oxygen quencher that limits photooxidation of lipids. That's just a fancy term for antioxidant, but a special type of antioxidant, one that specifically targets melanocytes, which are the cells that cause brown spots. What I liked the most about reading the articles about this blemish thing is what the author wrote in their discussion. I'll quote, "Myrrh has more secrets yet to reveal. It seems our present knowledge is lacking behind that of our ancient ancestors. Myrrh is a specimen that should be more widely studied and accepted into modern therapies." Whoa, isn't that amazing? Amazing things science doesn't know about myrrh. Turns out that she's still a bit of an ancient molecular mystery. If you are feeling inspired by the Magi and their Christmas presents, but don't know where to find some of these plant power gifts this year, not to fear, head on over to my website, tracekeikis.com, or look at the link below, and you will find my fabulous Camellia Luxury Oil, which contains plenty of frankincense and the isolated terpenes found in myrrh, packing an anti-inflammatory and cellular renewal punch. Just what your skin needs while it settles into a good night's sleep. Hold up! Now that you have uncovered the mystery treasures of frankincense and myrrh, you will really enjoy the hidden secrets of cucumber. I bet you'll never guess why she is so chilly. Teaser, it's not about the water content. Go ahead and take a look at this next video. I'll see you over there.